A quick introduction to our set of 4 books, Christianity Renewed, which are published in English and Spanish. Please check our website for further information.
Volume 1 traces the historical development of the Christian Church. Volume 2 explains the hidden mysteries of the Bible. Volume 3 deals with proofs and prophecies concerning the signs of the coming of the universal Christ. Volume 4 uses 70 illustrations about the link between Jesus and the coming of the Spirit of Truth, the Prince of Peace.
Hi, today our topic is heaven and hell. So this is a really interesting and important topic, yes.
Very important topic, yes, because it's very common amongst Christians to believe in heaven and hell. And many Christians, they believe that heaven is the place where God is in charge, and then there is a place called hell where the devil is in charge. Satan, the devil, whatever. Now, basically, as Baha'is, we believe in the oneness of God. And such a concept of dualism is already going against that basic of the oneness of God, because if God is perfect, He is in charge of His entire creation. He created everything, and then to put the devil in charge, it just doesn't work. It's called dualism. Where does the whole idea comes from? We have to understand that Jesus was living at a time when there was no science. Science was non-existing. People didn't know what clouds were. They had no idea at all. They even didn't know why is there a wind. Wind was considered to be something from God. Clouds, they were considered to be vehicles for God. It was a different time. People thought the earth is flat. And it got 4 corners, and if you walk too far, you fall off it.
Yeah.
And then there are these columns, and they believed there would be a kind of a ceiling, and that ceiling, that the blue ceiling is heaven, and then you got lights shining through that ceiling, which were the stars. And they thought that was the place where God lived, like a king who had servants, good servants, bad servants, and so on. And then they believed that from time to time He sent one of His servants down a ladder, like in the book of Job it speaks, He comes down the ladder to give messages, and they were the angels, they were the messengers, and so on. Very primitive type of concept. Heaven was not far away, it was just above the clouds, really, for them. Yes. Yeah, this is just a little introduction about
this is the Jewish understanding.
Okay.
So then what did Jesus continue with in His teachings to take the Christians into a further understanding, and why?
Dear visitors, it takes a lot of time to produce an excellent YouTube, but it takes only 10 seconds of your time to subscribe to my channel. Please tick subscribe and the bell below. Thank you.
Basically, Jewish people, they have the concept that when a person dies, he goes to what they call the Sheol, S-H-E-O-L, the Sheol. And the Sheol was a very shadowy type of world, where the souls, where the people continue to exist, barely an existence. It's the existence of a shadow. That's why I call it the world of shadows. And then they believed that there would be a certain time in which that their bones would reassemble again, and then they would appear before the Lord, which is called the Day of Judgment. Very common belief, and it's still well used today, still in Judaism.
Dear visitors,
now that concept of the Sheol, what happened was that the Jewish theologians, it's always the theologians, they started to discuss, and they suppose we have a Jew who dies as a martyr in a war, fighting against the ungodly, the Gentiles. Now he should get a better place in the Sheol. By the time of Jesus, there were already different compartments in the Sheol, about 5-6 different compartments, and In one compartment they placed Abraham, in another one they placed the sinners, and so on,
Right.
with higher and lower. And this is basically the concept which comes through in the New Testament. Yes, there are the compartments already, they are there, and people are suffering in certain of these compartments. Then what happened later is that the word Sheol was then translated into Latin as being the inferno, and that went then the concept of the hell. So the hell has a very historical development like that. And of course people are scared of the hell. Scaring was used a lot in the Middle Ages and later on, and so on. But now in our modern time, people want to know much more the question why.
So I guess 2,000 years ago it was used to educate the people in a very basic way. It's the promise and the threat,
Yeah.
which is probably useful at that time to bring people to a higher level of obedience and truthfulness in their lives. But for today, the promise and the threat is not enough, because we have education, we have rational understanding. So what does the Baha'i writing say now about these two concepts, heaven and hell?
Well, Baha'i writing says that there are spiritual concepts, and even here on earth we can feel in heaven. Like people are in love, they feel like they are in heaven. So
it's a state of being.
It's a state of being. That's probably a much better way of putting it. It's a state of being. So you could say that people who are getting closer to God, nearer to God, they are in heaven, and people who move further away from God,
that are remote,
they get more remote.
into the fire of remoteness.
Fire of remote.
Yes, I remember one of the quotes I love that Baha'u'llah says that nearness is likeness. To be near God is to be like God. So it doesn't mean physically like God, but manifesting in your daily life, showing forth the attributes of God. So being kind, loving, just. So if you are in your actions showing forth these attributes of God, you are like God in a sense. Therefore you are near to God. So you're in heaven. So it's a state or condition of being.
I think that's the most important one. In Baha'u'llah he says, where is paradise and where is hell? Say one is reunion with me, the other is then own self. So
and that means the lower self.
The lower self, the insistent ego, isn't it?
Yes,
the insistent self.
Because we have a higher self too.
Yeah.
When we have a dual nature as human beings, and when we express our higher nature, we are near to God. When we express our lower nature, we are more in the lower kingdom. I wouldn't say the animal kingdom, because animals can be more just and more kind than we are, but we are expressing our nature that is the antithesis of our higher nature. Instead of telling the truth, we tell lies. Instead of being just, we are unjust. We are cruel. So that is expressing our lower nature. And that is, in fact, when we're in that condition or state, we are in a state of hell. Yes.
That's right. And in some way, we have the ability today to create a hell in this world, isn't it? Or to create a heaven of this world.
So bringing it out from ourselves, bringing it on a higher level, which is part of our responsibility as human beings, is to help to create an ever-advancing civilization. And in this day, it is not enough for man to be just thinking about getting himself a position in heaven, that he says, oh, I'm going to heaven and I'll be with God and I'm such a good guy and that's good enough for me and that's all I need. The Baha'i concept of what we need to do in this age is, by helping to build a society that is based on justice and love and peace and unity, by being a part of that, creating that civilization, ever-advancing civilization, that we are in fact helping ourselves to develop. Because we are 50-50, we're individual, and 50-50 we are gregarious species. We have a dual role. We have to, individually, we have to live a good life, but collectively we have to also contribute to the society. To be a passive moralist and just say, I'm good, I'm okay, is not enough in this age. We have to be actively moral, and we have to be helping to build this civilization. So creating a heaven on earth today means to be able to build unity and love and peacefulness and justice in our society. And this is what we Baha'is are doing. And this is what Christ would want all of us to be doing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Because all human beings, they are social beings, they are spiritual beings, and they are eternal beings.
Yes. Yeah. So we have an eternal nature that's part of us that continues after death. As we said, you could liken the body to the cage and the soul or spirit as the bird in the cage. When the cage of the body is broken, the cage goes to its home, which is the physical world, and the soul or spirit, the bird, flies to its world, which is the spiritual world. So I think one of our other programs we were talking about the purpose of life. To be able to fulfill our purpose is to be able to develop those qualities in us of love, peacefulness, truth, all our attributes that are latent in potential within us, to develop them as far as we can and to help to build a better society. Then we fulfill our purpose here on life. And when we leave, we don't leave with regret. We leave the world a better place for us having been here. We are able to contribute, and when we get to the next world, which we believe is the spiritual world, and we look back on our life and we do our life review with the great being, we'll be happy that we made the effort through our volition and our willpower to help this process of building and creating a better world.
That's actually what now, because we have so many people go to this near-death experience, N.D.Es as they call them, and they come back with similar type of stories, you know, about meeting a being and also to have a life review. Very interesting, yes. Now, does that mean that as Baha'is we do not believe in the devil? Because that's a very important point in Christianity. Do Baha'is believe in the devil? I think Baha'u'llah himself, he speaks about the devil, isn't it?
He speaks of a satanic
Satan,
force,
a satanic
a
power.
satanic power.
Yeah.
Not as a personage.
I see.
It's more of a evil. I know Shoghi Effendi says that evil can be felt in the world. Its effects. It's not a power in itself, but the effects of evil are felt. The Baha'i, one of the ways Abdu'l-Baha, who's Baha'u'llah's son, he spoke of evil. He said, there's good exists, for example, and that we have a certain amount of love within us. And then, for example, hatred is just a lack of love. It doesn't exist in itself. Hatred is just a lack of love. In the same way you could say darkness has no existence of its own, it's just a lack of light. Or poverty has no existence of its own, it's just a lack of money. So, evil doesn't have an existence, but its effects are felt in the world. There's no doubt about that.
So when we talk about Satan, we are talking about, actually, what makes it very interesting is because Satan is a Jewish word and it means obstruction. So
obstacle.
Or obstacle. Something that is an obstacle
Prevents us from
coming closer
progressing
to God.
Towards God, yes.
And that's probably the original meaning of Satan. Anything that stops people from getting closer to God. So Satan can be alcohol.
Said before,
Can be alcohol. Satan can be drugs.
Yes.
Satan can be self-love.
No, not the good self-love.
Oh, that's...
This is always a difficult topic.
Narcissistic love.
Narcissistic
love.
It means vanity and pride. But good self-love, there's nothing wrong with that. That is loving the good within us. In the Seven Valleys, the Four Valleys, which is the next book after the Seven Valleys, the first valley is the Valley of Love, and he says that we must love the God standing within us with laws. He said that is the beloved self and not to be shunned. So we have this beloved self that is our higher nature, our beloved self, and if we allow the reflection of God to appear in our heart, like we reflect his attributes to others, that is God standing within us with laws. And like in the Hidden Words, Baha'u'llah says, thy heart is my home, sanctify it for my descent. Thy spirit is my place of revelation, cleanse it for my manifestation. There's another writing that says that if we cleanse our heart, that God can polish the mirror of our heart, God can be reflected in our hearts. There's no entry or exit here. No, we're not talking about a physical sense, we're talking about a spiritual reflection, an emanation, if you like, that we are, like for example with our voice, when we are speaking or quoting the words of God. I'll just give an example. The first Hidden Words, it says, my first counsel is this: possess a pure, kindly and radiant heart. Okay, so when I'm speaking these words to you, they are emanating from me through my voice. The effect of it is felt by you because the Word of God has its own power, it has its own effect. Through this emanation, nothing is coming, I'm not losing anything through the emanation, it's just coming forth. So the power of the Word of God emanates from our soul, from one soul to another. And it is, in the Baha'i writings, the Word of God is the key to the city of men's hearts. So through that Word of God, we are awakened to the spiritual reality of God and we come nearer to God. So
that's what the meaning is of the words which became flesh.
That's right.
Which also is mentioned in
the Bible.
The Gospel of John. Okay, that's very interesting, isn't it? Yes, we'll stop here.
Okay.
We'll stop
we
here.
diverged a little on
Yes,
that one,
yes.
but it was fun. We always enjoy having a chat. Thanks.